There is a place in the world where time clings to metal and dust. Pripyat, Ukraine. Built in 1970 for Chernobyl, its Ferris wheel never turned. People say the Geiger's chatter matches your breath and sealed flats exhale. Curtains lift. A dust handprint blooms inside. Keep your beam low, they warn. Under chalky daylight and the metallic tang of wet concrete, I drifted between identical blocks, the dosimeter nibbling at the air. I wasn't searching. Doorways kept opening. 48 hours in Pripyat stretched thin and cold, and it became the most terrifying time of my life. Daylight in Pripyat lies flat and chalky across Lenin Avenue as I move, the dosimeter nibbling at the air. The buildings repeat like a photocopy of a photocopy, balconies yawning in broken ovals. Wet concrete lives on the tongue, scorched plastic threads the breath. I keep my beam low so the dust becomes a weather I can see. Somewhere inside a block, something metal answers once, as if agreeing to a question I never asked. The school doors complain and give, and a breath of the foyer meets me. Damp fabric, paper paste, a sweetness gone sour. The corridor narrows under my light, moats rising in a slow parade. At the far end, a curtain lifts exactly once despite the sealed frame, then settles as if nothing learned anything. The stillness that follows feels arranged. The floor grit chases itself beneath my soles. The rumor tests itself without my permission. Inhale, and the ticks gather close and excited. A handful of pebbles thrown into a tin. Hold, and the chatter waits with bitten lip. Exhale, and the needle lets go by a careful degree, pacified. My breath is a ghost on the air, faint and briefly visible. The walls have a silence like snow, soft, deep, and not mine to disturb. A classroom still smells of chalk and varnish. Numbers climb a green board in careful hand. The final sum blurs where a single finger dragged down, tired. Desks hold small wrist-shaped crescents, each a clean moon in the dust. A paper crane, slick with damp, peels a fraction from the wood, then surrenders. I hear the small sugars of glass under my boot and feel silly for the apology that forms. The corridor's fire door eases wider on its own patience and stops just shy of the jam, a listening posture. I move toward it, and the dosimeter issues one dry syllable and refuses a second. My beam washes over a coat peg with nothing to hold and a pool of light with nothing to show. When I glance back, the door has not moved, but the hinge feels warmer against the air. Stairwells loop and mirror. I climb slow, and the steps answer a half-beat late, polite as if letting me go first. That second rhythm turns clumsy on the turns and then corrects, learning me. The handrail is sticky with decades of breath and cool, yet it warms beneath my palm as if skin pressed back. Iron dust tastes like pennies dissolved into spit. An anatomy poster clings to plaster with trapped bubbles, its glue gone milky. When I pass, the sheet slaps once as if tapped from behind. I turn too quickly, beams skittering over door numbers that repeat across floors, and the poster lies back down as if scolded. Veins and bones rest easy. The ticking steadies again, ordinary as rain on a far roof. Outside for a breath, the amusement park sits lighter than a memory. Ferris spokes combing pale sky. My light brushes a shooting booth where the prizes stare with punched-out eyes. Wind fails to move the bunting, but a single hook swings and clicks its post, counting something I cannot name. The air has the cold of a mouth kept shut too long. A ground-floor flat keeps its kettle on a cold coil, and 3 mugs with half-moons dried in the bottom. The kitchen window addresses a birch with paper bark scabbed by weather. The living room's temperature has tears, cool at my face, almost warm at the shins, emptiness in between. The meter gives a proud little tick in a bare corner with no pipe, wire, or reason. It waits for me to disagree. The elevator shaft is a throat of cool air. When I lean and shine, my breath sweeps back up and moves my own hair. A length of wire taps the concrete every few heartbeats, inventing a rhythm that unkindly matches mine, then goes strict silent the instant I notice it. I keep count anyway because something asks me to. The wire does not resume. The asking does. On the 4th floor, a door stands ajar as if mid-sentence. The hinge complains in a hush that touches the ear without crossing it. Inside smells like wet velvet and old varnish. A scuff path runs from couch to window, a small life worn into the boards. My boot prints lay over it, too dark, too present. The air seems offended, then restrains itself. A child's workbook lies open, loops of a single letter marching obediently. On the last line, the pencil bit down twice and fled off the margin. I balance the torch under my chin and close the cover, then open it again without deciding to. The page is the same. The pencil has rolled a thumb's width nearer the edge. It is a distance anyone could deny. The denial does not arrive. Back in the stairwell, my echo regains its twin. Softer heel, less weight, always learning when I want it to forget. I stop mid-rise until my calf trembles, and the follower shows courtesy and stops, late. 2 quick steps, and the mimicry stumbles, then corrects, the way a child finally catches a skipping rope. Handrail under my palm grows warmer again, and I do not think about veins running through walls. On a landing window ledge, frost has bloomed into a salt-white petal, though the air tastes damp more than cold. A fly laboring at the glass fails each attempt with a tiny thud. The latch resists my thumb just enough to make refusal feel like a rule. When I turn, something dry rakes beneath the sill. Only paint chips, only grit. Yet it chooses a path with purpose and rhythm. Block to block, each building selects a climate. One corridor bites the breath to mist. A stairwell hums a warm draft over knuckles like water over stone. Another room hangs heavy, greenhouse stale. The meter changes dialects to suit them. Chatter, chew, pause. In a vestibule, a bicycle bell pings once from an unseen bar, clearing a way that remains closed. The first clear wrongness arrives as advice I did not request. In a room that feels dead of everything, the needle pecks once, a sound too proud for its size. A sealed curtain lifts once on its own business and lies back. My shoulders rise, not quite a shrug, not quite surrender. The waiting in the building changes flavor. It learns the taste of me. When the waiting tires of itself, a white arrow appears on concrete. Bright where all paint dies. I follow it around a corner into a long hall with identical doors, numbers kept like badges. Somewhere mid-run, water drops without a before or after, as if the moment was inserted out of order. It leaves no stain. It wishes to be a fact. It succeeds. The breath-synced trick plays me again. I inhale. Clicks climb and crowd. The needle leans toward a thrill. I hold too long and the count holds with me, impatient and perfectly still. When I let go, the surge feels like a laugh contained in teeth. The thought that the building approves arrives and departs with a discipline I admire. The approval leaves a shape at my back. The window at the end is clean enough to confuse the eye. The sill wears a fur of dust. The pane wears none. My beam finds my face, grainy with motes, and a tunnel of corridor behind. On the inside glass, small and perfectly placed, a handprint blooms where there was none. Fingers reversed inward, palm light, dust pressed just enough to speak, not enough to smear. It does not belong to me. I do not touch it. The air at my cheeks turns cooler while a soft, warm ribbon trails my knuckles, two truths braided. Heartbeat slides into the ticks until I cannot count which is mine. In the polish around the print, tiny eddies widen and rest like a breath settling into sleep. Down the hall, the half-beat step decides to exist again. Careful, eager, late on purpose. I back one pace, and the print holds its edges, refusing to misbehave, as if it predates its glass. Dust on the sill shows my boots and something too light to measure, the ghost of a toe that never lands. I lower the beam until only the floor listens. Pipes refuse adventure. Elevators keep secrets. The building keeps me by remaining itself. It does not need more. Evening filters thinly through birch crowns, and every window mouth opens to the same vowel of quiet. Cold climbs to my eyes and makes the world brittle. I could call this dread, but the word tastes man-made. It feels more like a room that has chosen its furniture and rejects rearrangement. The streets decide I will keep moving. My feet agree as if that were always our deal. Evening thins to a chalk film, and every window along Lennon Avenue lowers like a careful lid. The follower in the stairwell relearns my gait. A half-beat late on landings, courteous at turns. I keep my beam grazing the floor to watch dust turn to weather around my boots. The dosimeter nibbles with small teeth. It should be neutral out here. The quiet chooses a side and, unhelpfully, it chooses me. Apartment doors make a row of shut eyes. Each peephole is a black seed pressed into varnished wood, a lens that never blinks. I lean to one to test a thought and get my corridor reflected back, a tunnel of my light rounding its own corner. I think the center darkens. No. My breath silvers the little faceplate, disappears, and the circle stares past me as if relieved. The wire in the elevator shaft remembers its old job and begins to tap. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. It finds my steps and fumbles when I stop. I wait it out, and it learns stillness with bad grace. Above, the frozen 4 on the indicator grows a halo of dust that doesn't fall. The shaft breathes cool air. My skin answers with small goose flesh, as if invited. Ozone ghosts the nose at a bend in the corridor, a rumor of current in a carcass of a building. Somewhere a door settles against its chain, decides against complaint, and lives with it. Curtains hang with the compassion of fabric that knows no wind, yet the fringes tremble the way sleep trembles when watched. Peepholes coin themselves along the hall, exact, patient, and unnecessary. A wall intercom clicks once without power, a dry acknowledgement for a question I have not asked. The grill exhales warm dust, impossible and persuasive. I put my ear to it and hear the architecture of silence arranging itself into shape. I think a breath threads through. No. The dosimeter makes one neat syllable, attendance taken, and quiet resumes with improved posture. The anatomy poster at the school greets me again. Bubbles trapped beneath dull plastic. Veins gone the gentle pink of milk. It does not slap this time. It has learned manners. Chalk hangs above the board in a cloud that isn't movement, but refuses stillness. Desks hold clean wrist moons where hands once polished the dust by living. Being seen feels pale and exact, like a fluorescent tube humming before it dies. Down a basement ramp, cold edits the hallway. Sound goes narrow. My bootfalls travel forward and return shaved thin. Locker doors stand ajar, slats half raised, little blinds with pupils behind them. Through one, darkness squares itself with the patience of a stare. Knuckles itch to knock. I let the itch pass me and keep walking. The lockers keep watching me leave. Mailboxes bloom rust like lichen. Handwritten Cyrillic names persist beneath scabbed metal. I lift a thin lid and warm air touches the knuckles. Not truly air, but air's old memory. Paper smell goes sweet, then turns to coins kept too long under the tongue. When the lid falls, it makes no sound. Yet the corridor adjusts its weight to carry that fact, as if it were a body. A mirror shard beside a stair feels like punctuation, a comma left after the sentence fell apart. My face arrives a fraction of a beat behind my head, a blink mistimed. I raise the torch. The reflection lowers it by the same thin mistake. I think the shard tilts toward me. No. The wall around it develops a gravity that my shoulders answer as if set in orbit. Door numbers keep their sequence until they don't. 16, then 16 again, the second thinner, paint sunk into wood. The peephole below the second acquires a milk skin, then clears too quickly, like an eye dropping its pretense. The dosimeter chirps twice and decides that is sufficient. I pass and feel the shape of a circle remain behind my ear, a phantom coin cooling there. Counting is supposed to help. I count the steps 1 to 4. On 3, the wire taps as if applauding. On 4, the Geiger obliges with an exact tick that feels like approval. I stop before 5 to deny the game. The hall dislikes this without moving. I think a mouth wettening to speak forms under a door. No. The anticipation sits down and learns stillness with me. The clean window returns at the end of another hall, a pane so clear the eye doubts it. The sill wears a soft pelt of dust. The glass refuses it. My beam finds my face and a tunnel reverse of corridor behind. Where the small inward handprint bloomed before, a faint halo persists, not a mark so much as the intention of one. A warm ribbon brushes my knuckles while my cheek grows cold. Peepholes decide themselves into a sub-constellation. Some at shoulder height, some at hip, some high like patient streetlights. Their arrangement feels deliberate without offering a pattern I can steal. I hover my eye near one again, not touching. I consider looking. I consider leaving. I do neither and am rewarded by a blankness that feels like being watched correctly, without the insult of a face. In a clinic corridor, someone has painted 2/3 of a viewing window from the inside. Thick, matte, decisive. The remaining crescent shows an empty room that has learned occupancy anyway. Bed frames cast shadows too long for the day. A drip stand performs a breath of sway and gives it back. I think something moves under the paint. No. The paint keeps its dead light, and I keep my distance. Bleach that never quite won, and fabric that never quite dried share the same air. My boots drag grit in a rhythm the building approves. 2 rooms away, a door on a magnet thunks like a nod I don't remember giving. The follower tries a new courtesy, goes first on 1 step, then corrects itself, falling behind again with the embarrassment of a child who miscounted out loud. A door with its peephole punched clean shows me a hole the size of my pupil. I lift the torch and let the cone climb. The space beyond rejects light like oil rejects water. The draft that returns is warm and slightly sweet, a held breath finally permitted to leave. I step back. The hole keeps its size. The sweetness diminishes with an aftertaste of teeth. The intercom gives a small crackle, the sound of a throat thinking about clearing. Heat lives in the metal for the length of a thumb. I hold my own breath to not confuse the room. I think the static arranges into syllables I nearly know. No. The syllables keep their feral shape, and the feral feels like recognition withheld with care. My breath falls back into the tick's old habit. A landing with 3 doors wears the same number 3 different ways, stenciled badly each time. The middle peephole holds a hairline crack like a healed cut. I lean and find not my hall, but a round of wrong sky, a color that belongs to another hour. Dust inside the lens moves as if herded by a palm I cannot see. I blink. The sky blinks slower, and the lens remembers itself. In a small office, ledger spines have split like fruit. Names and dates pale to ghosts in neat columns. A lamp without a bulb stands like a question that still expects answers. When I touch the shade, it holds a warmth that implies recent light. The warmth fades before my fingers cool. A small round burn on the desk marks where heat used to live, precise and non-negotiable. The white civil defense arrow appears again, bright as if repainted in a city that does not repaint. I follow it to a blind end that insists on being the point. As I turn back, a row of peepholes dims left to right, a traveling eyelid. I think I invented that, no. The dosimeter clicks once in perfect time with the last dim, a conductor tapping a stand in a room that forgot its orchestra. The park collects the last gray in its spokes, spooling the evening and keeping it. Prize animals in the booth look out through neat holes where eyes were, honest voids. The single hook still ticks against its post, counting a number I am not suited to learn. Attention drapes across my shoulders like a coat that remembers my size. It settles with a sigh that uses no air. Sodium halos wake not as lights, but as stains of lights, their ghosts hanging in air that has memorized where power used to live. Cold builds in calm layers, cheeks, throat, wrists, until the idea of warmth feels vulgar. Windows answer my beam with the lag of that mirror shard, a beat late, a shade wrong. I think a figure rents a pane for a blink. No. Sky-colored lies keep their lease. Another stairwell scolds the knees. The wire adopts a new code. Tap, long, tap, tap, silence, the cadence of instruction without alphabet. I crouch to listen, and the pattern surrenders exactly then. When I stand, it resumes 2 cycles behind where I expect it. I don't know the message. I know the sense of being told it twice, kindly, in case I missed it. One corridor gives me the stomach memory of being watched from floor height. Low, patient. The way a pet under a chair adores and refuses to blink. I sweep the beam. Nothing interrupts it, nothing at all. The peepholes keep their coins. The gaps under doors keep their darkness. I think I hear a slow inhale in a threshold seam. No. Only the corridor, arranging itself for an audience of 1. Night arrives without ceremony, trimming the city to edges and mouths. I bring back the clean window's halo of dust in my head and find the real one unchanged, still the intention of a mark where a hand was not. The stairwell follower keeps its polite half-beat, happy to learn. Door lenses hold their little skies. I move on, watched well enough to be kept, not enough to be claimed. Down another hall, a door chain lifts and sets itself down without moving the door. The sound has the intimacy of keys in a pocket. I press my palm to paint that has turned to eggshell. It returns a heat that does not belong to the hour. I think something stands just behind at ear height. No. The space holds its exact absence, and the absence listens like a name unspoken on purpose. An apartment with a view of the Ferris wheel holds its own stillness higher than the others. A doll's head on a shelf watches the spokes without eyes. The rubber scalp has cracked into a map that refuses countries. The room smells of hair singe and wet plaster, a combination that argues for a history and then lets the argument die. I do not sit. The chair stays ready forever. Corridor by corridor, the feeling gains discipline. It learns which of my sounds to answer and which to let go hungry. When I whisper to test it, the building does not reply. When I breathe to count clicks, the needle preens and obeys. I think I hear a voice under the dosimeter's chatter. No. The voice is mine, pared thin enough to mistake. At the clean window one last time, the halo thins as if it has breathed out and settled. The pain shows me and shows through me, both with the same lack of enthusiasm. The warm thread across my knuckles and the cold at my cheek braid again, practiced now. The corridor behind me holds its tunnel shape like a held note. I lower the beam. The watching continues without needing light or proof. Night pairs the avenues to edges and mouths. Sodium halos linger as stains instead of light, and the cold stacks itself, cheeks, throat, wrists, until warmth feels like a mistake. The stairwell follower keeps its courteous half-beat, patient as a metronome that wants to be liked. I carry the memory of the clean window's halo with me, a mark that refused proof but learned how to insist. The hospital takes me without invitation. The sign over the door has rotted to syllables and arrows. The cross has turned tea-brown. Inside, air tastes of iodine and wet linen. The dosimeter wakes from nibble to chew. Floor tile has the enamel slick of scabbed teeth where dust has been polished by no one. My light narrows the corridor into a choice I did not make. At reception, clipboards sleep with their backs broken, rings gummed with paper bruise. A trolley waits with one wheel lifted, toy-like. Bleach that never won drifts over fabric that never dried. When my knuckles brush the wall, paint lifts like dried algae. The intercom clicks once without power, a throat rehearsing speech and deciding to keep the lines. Down the X-ray corridor, the quiet goes mineral. Leaded glass makes the air weigh more. A ribbed switch plate holds warmth for the length of a thumb and then admits it lied. I think the temperature rises. No. The hallway only grows denser. The dosimeter picks a knuckle count rhythm behind plaster, metered and private. Observation panes return versions. My light a second late. Dust arranged as if stirred by a palm. A gray refusal that shows only itself. The peephole motif comes back as circles of lead that imply eyes without faces. Chalk bloom clings to the far glass and tries to write. Not letters. Intention. My breath fogs, clears, leaves nothing I can use. In the pediatric waiting room, tiny chairs ring a low table of damp-splayed books. Rubber in the air coins the tongue. A shallow crate holds child-sized gas masks, straps limp, eyes round and honest. One lies apart on a desk, its strap drawn tight as if tugged and left. The rubber smells like raincoats aging in the dark. Closer. The strap is indeed taut, buckled one notch deeper than comfort. A thin rebound line scores the dust where it snapped back. The room keeps that line like a quiet opinion. I reach to loosen the buckle, and the dosimeter gives a dry laugh that makes my knuckles reconsider. Heat lingers in the mask a second too long for the hour. Imaging turns corners into decisions I cannot undo. A hanging film jacket crackles like a mouth-learning speech. On a light box, dead phosphor remembers brightness. When my beam passes, shadows deepen obediently without logic. I steady the torch with a palm on the table. The table answers with a shiver I didn't give it. I think a face waits in the glow. No. The shape refuses a name. The first clear event arrives with certainty instead of noise. On the far viewing pane, a small handprint makes itself in real time, higher than my elbow would reach. Fingers splay, curious. Dust rallies to edge. Pressure is exact. The negative clean is perfect. My body decides not to move. The room takes the next line. Behind me, the mask on the desk ratchets. One notch, a soft rubber sigh, another notch. Buckle teeth whisper across metal. The dosimeter surges from chatter into song. Heat knuckles up through the table. Cold braids the throat. The glow licks the new print, and the print refuses to be a hand. It is a decision, not anatomy. Everything clips down. Strap, tight, tight again. Window. The print holds. No smear, needle, rising, air. Sweet, wrong, sweet, breathing, an engine, stop. I think something leans from the phosphor. No, the coin of shape stays in the pocket of the room. Buckle gives one last close, the sound of permission being granted. I back until the tray greets my hips and pretends it didn't move. The higher print refuses explanation, fingers calmly spread. No condensation halo, only displaced dust, exact and gentle. Tiny eddies settle around it as if after speech. A second fainter smudge ghosts above. Or I invented it. My heart argues for both and wins nothing. Being watched stops feeling and becomes instruction. I lower the beam on purpose, a bow the building taught me. The meter calms by degrees, consoled rather than pleased. I leave the mask as it is, strapped snug, face turned, and step out to the corridor. The civil defense arrow waits bright as a new scar. I obey because I do. Under the stair, warmth has pooled, as if the day drained here. Pipes tick in sympathy. My shadow stutters over a mop bucket that refuses rust. White tiles around the utility sink stay clean where splash should stain. A reversal that pleases the eye the way a solved sum does. I wash my hands in dry air and feel them dry again. The elevator lobby grows from the hall without permission. Above, the frozen floor holds its dust halo that never falls. The wire in the shaft resumes a code. Tap, long, tap, tap, silence. I lean. Cool air rises, touches hair near my ear like a whispered rehearsal. I think words ride it. No, the throat keeps its cool and refuses meaning. I take stairs because gravity tells fewer lies. The follower keeps to half-beat, affectionate mimicry. On the landing, frost blooms a salt-white petal beneath the pane, on the wrong side of air. I wipe my sleeve across the glass. Dust obeys my sleeve. The frost does not. The geometry pleases something that does not congratulate me. Medical records offer spines like broken knuckles, names and dates pale to weather, columns practicing silence. A lamp without a bulb gives a breath of warmth and dies the instant I trust it. The room smells of old soap and paper slow burning toward sweetness. I lift a ledger. The binding makes a bird noise and accepts me as a witness. The clinic window painted 2/3 matte waits where I left it. In the clear crescent, bed frames and a drip stand keep their shadows a little too long for now. A length of curtain is gathered and held by no hand I can accuse. The fold keeps a tension that argues. I think it trembles. No. The tremble is mine, lent to fabric. Back in pediatrics, the crate of masks remains limp, polite. The single mask has turned to face the window. A neat line in dust marks here to there to here, like a diagram a child could draw. The dosimeter stamps one tick like a passport. Approval. The approval does not comfort. It organizes me. Outside, The hospital exhales me onto the avenue. Ferris spokes comb what the sky has left. Prize animals in the shooting booth watch with tidy holes where eyes were honest voids. The white arrow on asphalt points along Lennon Avenue, out, and then loses itself under dust. I follow until the buildings repeat into a future I do not want. Under balconies, sealed curtains hang with fabric's compassion for no wind. Fringes tremble as if someone stopped looking. Peepholes bead wood like a constellation choosing itself. Across the courtyard, the clean square of window refuses pelt. The halo where the handprint bloomed is thinner, then truer, depending on breath and belief. I stand opposite and raise the beam until it touches the glass, runs away. The higher child small print is there again. No birth this time, only arrival. Edges settled, fingers splayed to the best sightline. Below it, the faint trace where a small wrist might have leaned, lifted. The city yields the floor. The light behind the pane holds a shape that declines to persist. Clip the world again. Fingers. Higher than logic. Dust displaced, exact. Strap, still tight. Needle. Performing for an audience. Cold, in calm layers, watching. Not a face, not ever a face. I think I hear a name uncurl in the Geiger's talk. No. The syllables keep their ferrule and spare me both insult and relief. The stairwell takes me back like a lesson retaken. Half beat, polite. On a landing, a bell sounds once. Fire alarm, small metal memory, with no system to carry it. The wire keeps its code and refuses my alphabet. 16, thinner 16. The doors humor my counting with repetition. I laugh without voice and let the corridor keep it. I leave by a path that remembers me and deposits me at the foyer like addressed mail. The intercom offers one final click, a coin dropped in a slot with no machine attached. Outside, the cold feels honest again. Wet concrete, iron dust, key metal on the tongue. I am not alone. I am not accompanied. Both truths fit. I keep moving. The quiet keeps choosing me. Lennon Avenue compresses to a long throat of sodium stains and birch shadows. Cold arranges itself in layers. Cheeks first, then throat, then wrists, until warmth seems like a bad idea. The arrows on the pavement still point toward the checkpoint, as if that were a moral choice. I follow because refusing them feels like stepping off a moving belt. Trapped isn't a room here. It's a policy the streets apply. Blocks repeat with the confidence of a photograph reprinted too many times. A kiosk with flyers bled pale appears, then appears again, rotated by a corner I swear I didn't take. I test the loop by counting cracks in a curb, then arrive at the same curb with the same number, correct to the chip. The city does not teleport me. It returns me by route, careful as a librarian shelving a book I keep misplacing. A directory map in a stairwell offers exits like veins. I pick a path to the school that should hook right and resolve straight. It does, with 3 extra corners the map never promised. The wire in the elevator shaft resumes its patient code. Tap, long, tap, tap, silence, and the frozen 4 wears its halo of dust that refuses to fall. A mirror shard near the landing returns my face half a beat late, faithful to its mistake. Door 16 arrives, and then its thinner twin, paint sunk deeper into wood. Peepholes bead the hall like coins that won't spend. Behind one door, a chain lifts and sets down without moving anything it belongs to. The dosimeter gives a firm tick as if taking roll and settles. I put my ear to the brass and gather a warmth that cannot belong to this hour. When I lift away, the ring leaves a cold that does. Grit learns my tread and keeps a copy. Beside it, a second set of prints shows up one stride shorter than mine, deeper at the ball, toe turned slightly out. 10 steps exist, then thin to nothing and decide to exist again. I widen my stride to test. The twin tries, fails, corrects, pleased with the attempt. I think I hear a small rubber squeak near the wall. No, only air remembering footsteps. In an apartment I recognize, the kitchen shows 3 mugs with half moons dried inside, new rings nested in old. The coil under the kettle is cold enough to bite the fingertip. Temperature separates by height. Wrists warmer, cheeks cool as glass, a gap of neutral between. I hold my palm near the window without touching. Air refuses to choose a side, slipping along the seam as if the pain were throat and tongue. Breadcrumbs feel rational. I tear a cuff thread and knot it under a stair rail. 2 flights later, another thread waits at my boot. The same knot, older weave, the gray of laundry forgotten in a basin. It belongs to small fingers. I pocket it because leaving it feels like breaking a rule I haven't read. The follower in the stairwell shows courtesy and pauses while I learn to keep small things. The hospital accepts me because hospitals always end indoors. Reception slumps into imaging by the exact corridors I've already learned. Bleach that never won meets linen that never dried. The light box hums with no light, memory clinging to its glass. When my palm settles on the table to steady the beam, the surface gives a small shiver that isn't mine, a teacher repeating a point I will not retain. Pediatrics keeps its shallow crate of child masks, straps limp, eyes round and honest. A single mask on a desk still faces the window, strap cinched 1 notch tight. Dust remembers its path like a simple diagram that refused erasure. Rubber holds a whisper of warmth and then denies it. I think the buccal tongue has crept another tooth. No, the angle is the same. My heartbeat apologizes for accusing metal. Painted glass in the clinic shows its crescent again. Bed frames inside cast shadows a fraction too long. A drip stand sways once and thinks better of it. Curtains in sealed rooms lift their fringes and lie down like animals trained not to beg. A door on a magnet clicks 2 rooms away with the embarrassment of a small noise that meant more in its head. Lost is punctual here. It votes and wins. Stairs tell fewer lies if I pay attention. Frost flowers beneath a landing pane, on the wrong side of air, a salt white petal that survives my sleeve. The bicycle bell in a vestibule chimes once from a place I haven't visited in hours. I think it's a memory of a bell elsewhere. No. The sound lands clean and makes a small rule. The wire keeps time for it, pleased to have work. Outside again, spokes hold dusk on the wheel like thread kept taut. Prize animals in the booth face the avenue with those tidy voids where eyes were, honest and uncomplicated. A white civil arrow on asphalt looks fresh painted where it should fade. I obey, and it carries me past copy-paste facades, over grit that memorizes my boot, toward a fence that remembers how to forbid. The fence is not heroic. It is patient. Steel returns shoulder to bone with the indifference of an old clerk. Beyond it, birch and checkpoint geometry, all single-file logic and gate rhetoric. A sign leans in a way that keeps its warning private. The dosimeter chooses chatter, then lets quiet set the rules. This is not the place to be creative with boundaries. I back away by the same number of paces that brought me. Basement shelter signs look like advice from a future that didn't arrive. Stairs spool me down into concrete breath. Posters peel to the floor, diagrams of how to keep breathing politely. The shelter door props itself with a wedge of wood too new for the room. Inside, benches face a blank wall. My beam catches a clean patch where feet have rested recently. Heels leveled, toes aligned. A study in waiting. Humidity grows a skin on the lip. Air tastes faintly of iron and something sweet in denial. The dosimeter complains, then moderates, then behaves as if talking to an old friend who will not change the story's order. I set my pack on a bench, and it shifts half an inch toward the aisle by its own mind. I flatten my palm. The wood stops moving as if taut. The floor is level. My eyes check like a carpenter's square. Spatial logic insists on itself, and still I don't win. Corridors meant to run parallel converge a block later like gossip. Stairs subtract floors I've climbed and return them with dust organized differently. A chalk line I draw on a handrail reappears 2 flights up as a clean negative, pressure reversed like a print pulled from a press. The city is not cheating. It prefers its own order to mine. Routes vary and fail in correct ways. Courtyard to school, school to hospital, hospital to apartments. Each track lands me where arrows meet the same square of asphalt. Peepholes along a hall dim in a traveling blink from left to right and recover as if nothing dared. The wire changes key and keeps code. My breath tries to learn the song. I think words hide in the measure. No. The feral remains feral and keeps its teeth. Hunger arrives like a schedule. Foil tastes like coin. The bar tastes like sawdust that promised more and kept its promise exactly. Water warms above the bottle mouth and cools below it, a geography of sips. Footsteps join on the half-beat and drop away when I scrape grit louder than necessary. Polite returns. Stubborn tries. Polite wins. I eat because the loop loves me better when I am busy. One last proof. I drag my palm across flaking paint at shoulder height, shedding a soft snow that marks me. 5 corners later, the same flakes sit along a different wall, arranged by air the way a hand might. My hand reversed. I laugh once without sound and hear something smile by choosing not to be a mouth. I think I see the clean window's halo breathe. No, it is only settling dust pretending to be a lung. Night thickens until edges and mouths are all that remain. The arrows forget themselves. I keep counting anyway, because counts are doors that open inward. Trapped here is a governance, not a ghost. Lost is honest about its intentions. I move along routes that prove themselves, and the city honors my effort by returning me to where I started with care, as if the shortest way out were practice for leaving later. The arrows along Lennon Avenue harden from rumor to instruction, bright again as if someone keeps repainting them for me alone. Cold writes its layers, cheeks first, then throat, then wrists, until forward isn't a choice but the slope my body stands on. The street narrows to a throat that knows my name. I lower the beam and let the dust become weather so I can read it. The follower corrects its lessons and closes until the half-beat becomes a breath at my collar. In the elevator shaft, the wire resumes its code. Tap, long, tap, tap, and the dosimeter's teeth fall in behind it like a section learning its part. I hold my breath and everything waits, properly, as if called to order. I think I hear words inside the pattern. No. The pattern has no use for language. Windows keep their private climates. The clean pane returns, refusing the soft fur of dust while the sill hoards it. Higher than before, a small inward handprint blooms as I watch. Fingers spread as if measuring the corridor. Tiny eddies polish themselves flat around it, like breath settling. The needle leans and steadies. I lower the beam until my shoulders remember manners. Pediatrics accepts me without apology. The crate of child masks lies as it did, straps limp, eyes round and honest. The single mask on the desk still faces the window. Its strap holds the same notch with a patience that feels like pressure. Rubber keeps a thin, false warmth, persuasive as a small hand. The dosimeter offers one neat tick, stamps me, and steps back. Outside the ward, civil arrows commit to their opinion. They collect me through halls that mirror last night's choices and deliver me to the elbow in the street where birch throw pale reachers at glass. Sodium halos hang as stains, making a colonnade of light that isn't light. The avenue compresses into a lane my feet already know. My breath begins to count clicks without consent. Apartment doors keep their eyelid discipline. Peepholes dim left to right, a traveling blink. Behind one, a chain lifts and sets itself down without moving hardware. 16 arrives, then thinner 16 sunk into grain. I don't touch brass. The echo of my steps double books me until it grows bored and returns me to a single body. The wire, pleased with its role, keeps time. The Ferris spokes spool dusk and keep it taut. The kiosk with the old inward print sits where it should, flyer ghosts peeling into their own snow. A white arrow on asphalt looks new again, the kind of new a decision becomes after being delayed too long. I aim for the hospital by habit, because hospitals end in doors that go somewhere. The habit approves and clears a path. Radiography holds its mineral quiet. The viewer is dead and somehow brighter for it. On the far pane, higher than my elbow ever would reach with the arm slack, a print steadies itself, edges exact, dust rearranged like a resolved argument. Under my palm, the table shivers with the same grammar as before. Heat at the hand, cold at the throat, needle leaning too quickly towards certainty. On a landing, the follower tries ambition, steps ahead once, then remembers its manners and falls back a half beat, embarrassed. I count stairs, 1 to 4. On 3, the wire taps. On 4, the Geiger agrees. I think a breath waits at ear height that isn't mine. No. The building only rehearses air until it fits the scene. I keep moving because the arrows would prefer that I do. Space begins to herd me in ways that would look honest on paper. Arrows gather themselves. Corners decide not to multiply. The avenue lengthens without trying. The sentence that refuses commas. The school allows me to pass. The hospital relinquishes its hold. Copy-paste flats keep their doors and abandon their differences. The fence line stiffens into the kind of boundary steel believes in. Silence thickens first, then tension, as the checkpoint wedge opens between birch. Booth, barrier, lane. The sound of my grit turns glassy, jar-bright. Air edits itself to the shape of a mouth covered by a hand. I lift my light and let it fall. Even the beam sounds like it has been asked to behave. The road beyond curves toward trees with a calm that doesn't include me. At the booth window, the motif drops its pretense. A child's small handprint blooms on the inside glass, fingers splayed for a view, edges catching and keeping, the negative clean exact. Around it, a second, fainter halo breathes, settles, refuses proof. The mask back in pediatrics withholds sound like memory kept. The needle tries for a higher angle and finds it has run out of sky. Everything clips down. Gate, a policy welded into patience. Glass, one decision, perfectly made. Breath, too loud, too taut. Wire, quiet for once. I think I see a second print resolving. No. The pane shows a single choice and promises to remember it. My left hand looks wrong. I keep it where it belongs until the want of touch dissolves at the edges and leaves me measurable. The arrows underfoot insist forward. The booth presents no handler. The barrier offers no lock for me to admire. Fence is not heroic. It is procedure. The road beyond holds its shoulder open the way a sentence holds its last word for the right mouth. I slide the beam down and feel the meter moderate, not forgive. The silence carries weight like a lead apron eased across the chest. Along the fence line, a panel has been cut and wired back into a hinge wide enough for a body like mine. Birch litter cramps its throat, but the path fits. Air on the other side is warmer by a degree that means nothing and everything. The silence changes shape, tighter at the ears, looser in the lungs, as if someone has stepped away to let me decide. I think the gap narrows, no. It remembers its size. Crossing is not theater. It is a list. Shin, hip, elbow, palm flattening for balance. My hand steadies on the outside of the booth glass and clears a small oval in the dust. A new clean where there was none. A trace that matters only if something needs it to. The Geiger holds steady like a held breath for a photograph. The wire does not tap. The follower does not find a way through. 2 breaths and the zone's side doesn't acknowledge me, except by being slightly wrong about its temperature. Birch litter takes my boot with a neat stamp, honest sound, no echo. I wait for the half beat to claim the trees. It doesn't. Somewhere else a single hook ticks its post in a square I can't see. The silence between those facts arranges itself into the size of a thought. I take 3 steps up the road and look back because doors teach backward glances. The inward handprint in the booth keeps its calm, a quiet argument for what windows are for. My oval of clean sits opposite it like a reply I didn't plan. The gap in the fence recalls my shape, the way graphite recalls a line. The needle drops to a tired chatter. Light stains the air where lights used to be. Outside air has a grammar all its own. It tells me to go, then corrects itself to suggest I may. Birch draft cools my cheeks. A warm seam collects at the wrists, as if the place learned my measurements and isn't done with tailoring. The Ferris spokes stand lower now, bled by distance. I think a mark has followed me out. No. Dust on the cuff is only dust. I roll the sleeve down over it and keep walking. Birch thin into a colder road, the fence a quiet seam behind me. Air loosens in the lungs and tightens at the ears, a bargain I accept by walking. Night has no light here, only stains where light used to live. The Ferris spokes shrink to a flat crown over roofs that refuse to remember me. Gravel stamps small, honest answers under my boots, and when the checkpoint's hush finally spends itself, I keep going until the cold carries my name like a coin on the tongue. I stop where the trees relent and wake my phone for time. My breath blooms and clears from the glass, and there it is. One small handprint pressed from the inside, dust reversed, edges exact, as if the screen kept a window I left behind. Sleeve across, squeak, smear gone. The print holds, delicate and stubborn, settling the way a spill decides to become history. I tilt the glare away and the mark steadies, a quiet refusal to belong to the air outside. I pocket the phone, then pull it back as if the pocket were warmer than it should be. The road ahead waits with nothing but space, but the screen is its own room now, its own pain, a breathless inside carried in my hand. I try warmth, I try cold, thumb, knuckle, breath, nothing moves it. The trees keep their distance like witnesses who already told the truth. 5 inward fingers set inside the glass, faint and permanent.